Guys, this is Brian from CMR Products, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install drop wires using CMR Products Cato compatible drop wire and Tamiya plug kits. What I'm going to do is I'm starting off with the triple that I have started building for our T-TRAK group. I'm going to be installing a terminal bar, some drop wires, rerouting the plug wires for the turnouts for both of them. I don't know if I have the plug handy for that, but we're going to drill it anyways. Tools we're going to be needing: you either use a drill bit or a small Forester bit, something to strip the wires with, something to remove your track screws with after you have everything marked out, some solder, some flux, and a soldering iron. We're going to be doing drop wires, plugs, everything up till the Tamiya plugs, and we'll jump back into that here in a little bit. So, as you can see, I have a number 6 turnout coming off the secondary main, coming into a number 4 turnout for my industrial lead. This is a 3-track entrance module built out of one of our triples. So what I want to basically do is I have a pencil, and I'm going to go ahead and trace out my track pattern. And I'm going to mark roughly where I want the drop wires at, so we can go ahead and take and drill the holes here after we pop some track off. So let's go ahead and get started. And on this module here, I am not using any terminal tracks. I am going to be building my own drop wires, so I wanted to use all longer sections of track. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm basically marking the location of where the turnout wires are, where they should be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark roughly where the center line is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and set my terminal strip roughly here underneath the module. And I'm going to run all my drop wires from all 4 sections of track over to the appropriate section. Secondary main and the industrial lead are all going to be tied together, including the spur. I am not going to be using the power routing features of the Cato Turnouts, or the Cato Turnouts, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So I'm going to take and run all the wires over and in. So I'm going to be marking here. So I want the joint or the drop wires to come off of there, here, and here, and I want them to come off of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take basically my entire second main off and the first half of my first main, so I can take and drill the holes out. Now I am using a powered screwdriver to remove the screws. I use a manual screwdriver to put the screws in because I do not want to damage the holes underneath the track. Okay, as you can see, I do have my track plan drawn out here. Some of my track screws do not come down the whole way. They don't need to come out, really. I can work around them. Plus, it tells me exactly which holes I'm using. So the next thing I'm going to do is I like to actually use a little Forester bit because it's going to take and remove the least amount of material. And my drop wires are roughly the same width. Now, granted, you're not going to be able to get the Tamiya plug down through the hole. I do have a tool built that I hand built to remove those plug ends so I can drop the pins down through the hole. So first off, what I'm going to do, you got to measure roughly how much room you need from end to end to drop in your turnout wire. So we're going to measure from the flat side in, the center of the wire edge is sitting at 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to measure on my lumber 3/4 of an inch over and mark it with the pencil. As you can see, I have the line here. Because I do not have a straight edge handy, I'm just going to use a piece of track, line it up flush with the edge, draw my line down. That piece is marked. I'm going to measure where the end is on the number 4 turnout. That starts at 1 inch. And I measured from the flat side, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here on the side of the layout. Okay, next thing we're going to do, I'm going to figure out which track sections we had here because I did not leave it together. And I'm going to figure out where I'm going to go ahead and put my drop wires. Now, how this Kato drop wires works is very similar to the factory. And I'll go through the whole thing about installing the drop wires on the joiners. The joiners are actually grooved for the wires. So after I have the wires split far enough, I have them on the joiners. I want the wire to come back behind the screw hole and down through the layout. So with my wire still on there, I'm going to set this up, look, and with that screw being still in there, fortunately it helps out, I want it to come down roughly there. And what that translates to is about 1 1/8 inches from the edge of the track on the other side. Okay? So again, I'm going to take my track as a straight edge since I'm using the same length track on the secondary main line. I'm going to draw my line across both mains. Mark my center line because I want it to be in the center, so I now know where those are going to be done. Next thing is I'm going to move on to the industrial lead here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure back, figure out what I need. Now I got to remember which way I have this coming off. Okay, I have it coming back on the corner piece track, and it's still within the inch of the joint. I'm going to lay my other track in. Lining up my holes. Marking the edge of my track. Lining up my inch mark. Take my straight edge. Marking my center line. So now I have the mainline, secondary, and industrial spur turnout pieces marked. And now I'm going to do the actual industry turnout. Okay, mark the edge of my track. With this being on a curve, it's not going to be the 1 inch back. It is actually going to be 7/8 of an inch, but I'm going to move it back to the full inch just so I have enough room to get the wires down through. Double check my turnout because I don't want to cut too many holes in. Okay. Stops. Three-eighths. So what I'm doing is I'm actually marking the start and stop. Start's about between 7/8 and an inch 3/8 is the end of where that opening is. So now I have an opening marked out. Check my length back, which tight edge is about an inch. Now with that plug on there, we're going to be probably looking more at 3/8 of an inch. So we go to the edge of the turnout. I did not mark. Here, here. Mark 3/8 of an inch back. So right 3/8 of an inch back. Within here and here is where we actually want it. So I'm going to make a little plus sign on the top of my module because that's where I want to put the point of the Forester bit to drill. We have our drill point for mainline turnout, our number 6. Mainline, secondary mainline, industrial spur, and actual industry track. So we're going to go ahead and drill the holes. The Forester bits, I do have a small fine point, so I'm going to put that point right on my little plus. And I'm going to drill all my holes. Okay, now we have our holes for our mainline, secondary, industrial, turnout wires, and our actually industry. So we're going to go ahead and flip the module over and mount my terminal strip and prep for drop wires. Alright. Now I'm going to line up where all my holes are, figure out where I want to mount my terminal bar. I'm going to turn this around so you can possibly see this through the camera. Front part of the module, the wire hole is here. I like to have it somewhere close to the back so I can route the wires directly out of the terminal strip out. What I'm doing is running 2 screws into the terminal strip to hold it tight. There's the terminal strip mounted. The screws did not come through the top, which is a good sign, so that means they got the right length. Next thing I'm going to do is figure out if I have enough wire, if I'm going to have to go round up some more. I should have enough out of my 3-foot chunk here that I grabbed to do my main line and my 1 industrial lead. Okay, so we're going ahead and set this off to the side. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do some joiners. So I'm just going to pull some joiners off some track here. At this point in time, it really doesn't matter where I'm pulling them from, because they're all going to go back in place. And if you do not have the Kato tool to pull these off, all you do is slightly bend the tab in, put pressure against it, stick it in the back, and then push, and it pops the joiner right out. Now to remove your joiner from the actual Kato joiner, there's little tabs on either side here that hold these in place. All I'm going to do is I'm going to push down on one, and as you can see, the joiner actually just falls right out. I'm going to repeat this for a couple of these here. Okay, as you saw before, I took and pulled the wire apart so we could get a measurement on where to put the wire underneath. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually strip these off. You can use a pair of wire strippers. I like to use a pair of pliers. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tin the wires. Apparently my tip's dirty. Okay, wires are tinned. Next thing I'm going to do is use a little bit of flux. On the back of the joiner. Now there is another video out there that shows this a little bit more up close and personal than what I'm doing here. Now I'm lightly gripping the joiner with my pliers so I don't burn myself here when I take and hit the heat against the flux. What I'm doing is that the flux is actually etching the metal so it'll take solder. I'm going to repeat this for the 4 joiners that I have ready to do the 2 main lines. You only need a very thin coat of solder on those joiners. Put too much on it, you're not going to get them back into the plastic housing. Next step, just put the plastic piece over top of your wire. If you don't do this, you're going to have to take and tear it back apart to put them on. I apologize if you really can't see what I'm doing here. But all I'm doing is on the tinned joiner and on the tin wire, all I'm doing is heating them up and bonding the wire to the joiner. I'm using my pliers here as a heat sink so I don't overheat the joiner. So I do have to hold it on there a little bit longer. But as you can see, the wire now is attached to the joiner. To put these back in, I'm going to take and bend the wire into a slight L shape. Push the joiner back in, you'll hear a slight click as the tabs on the end of the joiners click back in to the plastic housing. And there you've made your own set of drop wires. Now what I'm going to do is bring the module back up, and I'm going to install the outside main line drop wires. And we put the hole on the back side. So what I'm doing is folding the wires back. I'm going to click them on the one side. And the pattern's blue, white, white, blue. And that would be dark, light, light, dark, or in this case, black, red, red, black. Okay? Now with that joiner still being on there, I'm going to slightly push on the back side and get that joiner to pop off. Okay, and feed the wire down through. snap the track in place. I'm going to try to show this on the video. Okay, I'm going to have to move the camera here. Okay, I'm going to pull the wire down. You see the wires popped out from around that pin. So I'm going to pull them back. Try to tweak the track to see it. Have my track screw there. I'm going to run it out a little bit. Okay, line it up with the pin on the bottom of the track. Start it slightly. Pull the wire down. Run the screw tight. There's your drop wire in. Track's attached there, so it's not going to move. Put the module back down. Pardon me, I'm going to adjust the camera again. Next thing I'm going to do is take and measure out where I'm going to put the wire. And I always start from the outside. Here is the outside main. Next to is the inside. And the next set is actually my accessory line. So all my other tracks will be put onto the next set. Okay, so I'm going to measure, give myself a little bit of extra slack. Cut my wire, set that aside. Strip my wire. Strip the insulation. Tin my wires. And I'm going to attach them into the terminal strip. And there's my first main line. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process for the other ones. And before I go ahead and attach the track down, I'm going to show you how to take and install the turnout wires down through the holes. Alright, we have all of our drop wires made and stuck onto our track. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and remove the pins from the turnout piece. Drop them down through the holes, and we're going to go ahead and get the rest of our track put together here. So, as I was stating before, I do have a tool built. What this is basically a tube that slips over the pins. I'm going to go ahead and push it in there. As you can see, the pins just pop right out. Okay, and I'm going to leave it where the black pin was. Whenever I put it back together underneath, I can put it right back to how factory was. You can also see that I have my drop wires set, so all I'm going to do is snap the track in, push the wires down through, bolt it together when I have the module flipped up. For now, I'm going to go ahead and skip the number 4 turnout because I don't know exactly where I put that piece at. So we're just going to go ahead and put it in without it. When I do locate it, I'll just unbolt the track and feed it down through. Now to reinstall the pins for the turnout, all you do is you take and push it right back in the hole. There it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and finish routing the wires. Getting everything wired up underneath the module. Get the track bolted down. And then we'll go ahead and build the ends. Okay, one thing I did forget to mention is how I hold the wires down underneath. I actually have a stapler that has a loop end in it. And you can actually get these at Lowe's and Home Depot. They're very nice when you're doing the wiring underneath, because you can hold the wire together in a group. And you notice it does not crimp the wire. It just holds it in place. So what I'm going to do is finish routing my wires, staple it all up nice and neat underneath the module, and then we'll go back and get the wire ends put on their connections to the bus line. And we're back here with our triple module we've been doing the wiring demo on, and we're going to get down to actually doing our bus wires coming out the back of our module using the CMR Products T-TRAK male plug Kato compatible, which is part number TM910. I have been asked, how compatible are these plugs to the actual Kato plugs? We're going to show you how compatible they are. Get our package open. So, I'm going to move around here so I can actually see the camera. Right here is our plug. And here is a Kato 3-way and their plug. Notice they are the exact same shape, same size, everything. Snaps right in, no pressure, no nothing. You just put them in and you're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create our drop wires. So we have our Kato compatible or T-TRAK bus wire or drop wire here. We're going to split off the section here we're going to use for our drops. Strip the ends, and then we're going to go ahead and crimp them in. Now, you don't have to do this step here that I am doing, but I do this with everything, is I solder every connection everywhere. You can do this with an iron or a soldering gun, it doesn't really matter. What I'm doing now is breaking off the end wire or end pieces for our plugs. I may just reach over here and steal my cutters and just snip off the ends. Okay, and I actually have a crimper tool for these type of plug or terminal ends. You do not need it. You can use any other standard crimper tool. I just happen to have one of these because I do a lot of this stuff. This one's nice because I can actually set it, slide the wire in where I want it. Make sure I can get this here in focus. And it actually does the same crimp end from the factory. Now if I wanted to take this a step further, I could put a little bit of solder on those crimp ends to guarantee solid connection. And I may go ahead and do that here as soon as I get the other one crimped. Okay, also had questions on what the order is. So we're going to look here at the actual Kato one. Okay, you have white, blue. And and we have red black. In my mind, it's light dark, light dark. So when we go to put ours in, it'll be red on the one side and black on the other. All I'm doing is using a screwdriver to push these in far enough where they click in. There you have it. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and split off the other side. We're going to go ahead and put it into our terminal strip underneath the module. Now the drop leads that I had made here are about 30 inches long. That way I don't have a problem with them being too short when we go to put them in any other setup. Okay, we're going to just go ahead and solder the next setup. Just trim the ends down a little bit so they fit better. In case you're wondering, the notch here and the back fins, there's a set of grooves inside the jaw where the back ones go into. And if you have it right, whenever you put it in, the pin won't slide out at all. Then all we're going to do is take our wire, slide it in, make sure it actually is going inside the connector. We want to make sure insulation is back and not in the crimp. If it's in the crimp, you're not going to actually have any connectivity. And now I'm just going to put a little dab of solder in here to make sure the wire is soldered to the housing. And we're going to go ahead and put it in the same way we did the other one. Make sure both wires are tight. Feed our wire through. And we have made a couple revisions to our modules of late. One is I moved the wire holes on our triples and quads to away from the center leg so it doesn't interfere with whenever you're wiring. And I do apologize anybody out there that does have the older ones. It is a pain. So we'll get the wires in and get them hooked up to a terminal strip if you're using it. Okay, there you have it. We have everything done up here, and drop wires installed, and we're ready to go out and test it.